Welcome to Pivotal People. Today we're going to be speaking to Mark Gross. Mark is a partner at Downing LLP. Hello Mark, thank you for joining us on Pivotal People. It's really lovely to see you here. What we want to talk about with you today is how you got to where you are now. So taking you right back to the beginning and trying to get a picture of how you got from where you were to the position you're in now. So take me back to your childhood. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and where you started from.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we interview people, we often ask them, what do your parents do? Because I think it can be a good insight into the drivers and motivations of the individual. So I grew up in Leeds. I come from a long line of tailors, so a family business. It was my father's business, it was my grandfather's business, and then before that, from what we understand, generations of tailors.
Did you ever work as a child in that business yourself? Did you actually go in and help out?
My dad was a salesman, so what he was very good at was the interpersonal, meeting his customers, understanding their needs and making sure they got what they want. He was very attentive. He was actually quite astute. I think during his tenure running the family business, he actually had people actually making the clothes for him. So he would do the measuring, he would choose the cloth, he knew how a fit should look, feel, and the right cloth for the right occasion. So I often visited, occasionally went with him on the rounds, went to see the workrooms, seeing the suits being made. And he had a very strong work ethic. And I think that's something that runs through our family, that on all sides of the family. So a very strong work ethic. And so I'm Jewish background. I think within kind of those minorities, ethnic minorities, there is this sense of education first and foremost. But for previous generations of our family, that might not have been possible. So we were the first, I think, in our generations to go to private school. So me, I've got an older brother and younger sister. We're quite different. So my nickname in the family growing up was the little dim sum.
I bet it's not anymore, is it?
Well, I don't know. So I think it's all relative, really. I had a very academically intelligent brother. But it was kind of inverse to common sense. So I was seen as coming kind of the most common sense in our family. It didn't mean that I didn't achieve. I just had to work very hard and would come very, very middle of the road. But the reality is I couldn't sit still when I was younger. Classroom-based learning really just wasn't for me. I didn't like it. Preferred to be much more practical, understanding the application of things. So school was a slog. I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it. I had some good friends. Tried to get involved in many sports. So I was in the cricket team, the football team, the swimming team. Again, I was quite often the reserve, but always enjoyed.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you can learn from teamwork, from working in a team.
Oh, absolutely.
Doing sport, absolutely. I mean, my son was in football all of his childhood, and it makes a big difference to understanding of teamwork.
I think that's absolutely right, but you don't realise it when you're younger. You know, you're having fun. You're with your friends, and more importantly, I'm not sat down doing nothing. So I quite enjoy that. But so growing up, a very academic brother, didn't seem to need to put much effort in, but would succeed. To top of his years, Oxbridge. And then went into management consultancy, and then gave that up, much to my father's dismay. He was horrified, but he redeemed himself. He went to work at the United Nations and now runs his own consultancy. Sister was probably in between us. She would put a modicum of effort in and do exceptionally well. Went to do law at university. Again, much to my father's dismay, thought he was going to have a barrister. She decided that she wanted to go into legal recruitment and has succeeded in that. Again, the interpersonal side. I think for sitting behind a desk, just working predominantly on the documentation.
Which they both got from your dad, really?
I think so. I think so. He was he loved talking to people, everybody, meeting new people, and that all three of us.
You went to university, and what got you into where you are now from that university education?
I think it is a mixture of hard work and a mixture of luck, if I'm completely honest. I think you can make your own luck sometimes. But I always had a very strong work ethic. I think got to university, didn't get my first choice, thought the world had ended, however many years of secondary education all leading up until that point, and you're led to believe, if you don't do well, that is it. I mean, my experience, not just my own experience, but speaking to many others that have reached very senior positions, it's just not true. My view is school is there to try and help you understand the world around you. But school is a very particular system, and we see this through one of the investments that we've made, which is special educational needs schools, which is kind of very much working towards the project-based method of learning. So not trying to sit kids down in a classroom and just talk to them for the whole day. I think it's a very antiquated Victorian type system. I didn't get what I wanted. I think to some extent, although at the time it was a very difficult pill to swallow, actually my head of sixth form at school, a gentleman called Terry Ellsworth, who was a most lovely man, sometimes people know you better than yourself. And he said to me, look, there's a course at Northumbria, a business studies course. I think it's the right course for you. I think you'll really enjoy it. And actually I followed his guidance, and he was absolutely spot on. Got to university, and I don't know what happened. Maybe it was the prospect of having to stand on my own 2 feet out in the real world. My parents had supported through education, but they didn't have the means to necessarily support us beyond that. And I wouldn't want them to either. So that drive, that I guess work ethic, combined with the realisation you're going to stand on your own 2 feet, but finally finding a subject which was I'm just fascinated with business. And it's not the financial side. People often think as an investor we're focused on, but for me the financial side is the outcome of everything that goes before. So if you focus on the things before, you hope the success, whether you measure that in terms of social impact, financial, however you want to choose it, it's a function of everything that goes into it. If you try and, I think, jump it, of course you hear stories of people that, get rich quick, or, somebody strikes gold. Of course you're going to get stories like that. But my experience is the vast majority of wealth and success is built over long periods of time through hard work, but understanding the world around you. And I think that is something that, if you're in education and you're not the most academic, it's not the end of the world.
No, and a lot of the people that, in the care sector particularly, there's a lot of people right at the top that probably didn't do well in education at all. And, have worked their way up and worked their way up through the organisations they've worked for.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I know a number of senior people, within the care sector that started life as carers, and then have gone on to law, gone into kind of chief executive roles. The academic side, the technical side, can help you in your early career. It gets your foot in the door, and it is important to understand your trade. So many other things that kind of dictate success, and we see that again when we're recruiting at Downing. We're very conscious that people sometimes have a perception of an investor, banging their hands on the table, telling people what to do. Again, my experience, over 20 years in investment, my experience is rarely does that work. It's building trust, it's influence, it's understanding which questions to ask. Really having faith in the people around you, the teamwork.
You're going into schools and doing careers, teaching people about what you do?
Yeah, I was asked, a friend of mine's a lawyer, and actually asked me to get involved.
Oh, I see.
And she was working with a disadvantaged school in North London. And the backdrop was that many of the children coming from disadvantaged families in education, quite often they look to their parents and they see that as their root. This is where I belong in society. These are my type of people. And the view is that sometimes they can limit themselves in terms of their aspirations or their belief in terms of what they can do. And so the idea was to come and talk to people and just, explain a little bit about the role, try and demystify it. Again, as investors, we're not nasty people. We're not banging our hands on the table. Of course, in every industry, there is going to be elements of bad practice. And we see that in every type of role, and people, can be selfish. But it was just really to try and talk to people about what the role encompasses. Just demystify it a little bit. Again, what we do badly in finance is have lots of terminology. Sometimes we've got 3 words for the same thing.
Absolutely.
And it confuses people. So I sometimes don't think we do ourselves any favours, but just try and demystify it a little bit, but also talk about background, history, and the roots through. Some of the kind of most academically achieving people actually haven't worked out within the workplace. You know, some go on to do phenomenal things, but some kind of go the other way. I don't think you can categorise. If you get academically excellent results, you will succeed, because I think if you go through school, if you go through academia and you're taught, if you do this, the world is yours, and then you get into the workplace and say, well, where are all my rewards?
That's right, yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure. You know, I think it's that hard work.
Yeah, but don't you think that's a little bit about having to work hard, if you're the sort of person that has the background that is forcing you to work hard to better yourself, you're not going to expect everything to happen around you. You've got to work for it.
I think that's right. The people, irrespective of demographic background, academic excellence, the individuals that want to go out there and achieve, that want to stand on their own 2 feet, even if they've got a very comfortable backdrop, you can tell those individuals say, no, do you know what? Forget all of that. I want to be my own person. I want to make my own successes. You know, that general drive, I think you can see in people. Oh, definitely. I think it's about finding your niche too. Yes. Finding the right direction. Absolutely, and I think that's it. That's a really good point, because I think, you know, even in one sector, you know, care operators, you speak to 2 different care operators that are both seemingly operating in the same market, but the way that they run and operate their businesses can be very different. Actually, sometimes it's subtle, but they can have quite a pronounced impact outside of the way that they choose to staff the business. What they expect of the general manager in a care home can be very, very different and have quite profound impacts. Again, it depends which part of the market you're also dealing with, who your client base is. If you decide you want a career, go into a workplace and decide, actually, I'm not enjoying this, it might not be the job, it might be the company, the culture. We were talking to other people earlier on about how you don't work for the company necessarily, you work for a person. And if you've got that right person guiding and supporting you within that company, then the sky's the limit, really. I think mentors. Yeah. And it doesn't. I don't think it always needs to be your line manager. Sometimes it can be somebody completely separate, absolutely nothing to do with your role. Yeah, absolutely. But I think back through my career, and I've heard many other people say the same, that there's probably a small number of people that really stand out, that really made a difference, and that really believed in you, gave you the opportunities. From my point of view, working within some of the larger organisations, the scale that you're having to look to is quite risky, isn't it? It feels quite scary to take on that amount of investment, I suppose. Yes and no. I mean, I think, you know, I've worked with throughout my career. Sure. You know, we kind of jumped a bit in the middle. You know, I worked for Bank of Scotland. I think you know, right, the financial crisis. You know, 2008, kind of at the eye of the storm. Yeah. Fortunately, I was very early in my career, so you can learn many of those lessons and try and take those forward and try to avoid them. But I think having worked in investment for almost all of my career, which is where some of the luck that we referred to at the start comes in, I came into the workplace when there was an opportunity to access direct investments, which was a point in time. People think investors are kind of, you know, from a numbers you have to be particularly, you know, mathematical genius. That's not true. Okay. What I think you have to do is you have to look at numbers and you have to see a story. Okay. Now, sometimes the story's hidden and you have to ask questions. You can have a very large business that's actually generating that money from doing a very small number of things, and it's very simple to look at. You can have a very complex, wide business generating less money and actually trying to keep hold of all of that. How does it fit together? How's it managed? Structures, governance, etc. That can be very difficult. So the numbers themselves don't faze me. I think what I've had the privilege of doing through my career is around systems. Yeah. I don't think what we're doing is particularly complicated. In my mind, it's just common sense. And we say that to our team when you come in. There is no substitute for common sense. And, you know, some of these disciplines, again, you don't necessarily get instilled at school in the way they should do. Actually, a lot of that comes from your home life, the way that you interact with your friends, the things you choose to do in holidays. Your parents, of course, are a huge influence. Grandparents as well. Oh, definitely. Yeah. 2 last questions. Go on. If you go back to that young boy and know what you know now, what are you going to tell him, the young boy that was you? I think I'd probably say, don't overthink, don't worry. You know, you build scenarios in your mind. I'd probably just say keep doing what you're doing, to be honest. Sometimes you can put kind of 95% of the effort in, and it will get you so far. But the extra 5%, just taking that little bit longer, going that little bit further. Yes, it can be painful when you're tired. You know, extra 5%, I think, can have a disproportionate difference to an outcome. You know, I think sometimes if I'm doing a presentation, I've seen colleagues prepared to stop at a point and say, actually, look, if we just, whether it's the formatting of a presentation, let's think of all the questions we don't want to be asked, because guaranteed that's what's going to happen. Let's just make sure we've got that covered before we go in.
That's a really good piece of advice for everybody, you know, for certainly when I'm working with care home managers in care homes, that extra 5% effort in writing those care plans, making them person-centred, all that sort of, you know, spend the extra couple of hours at the end of the day to get them right. It is.
But I tell you what, I have had to balance in doing that. My tendency is towards being a perfectionist. And I think throughout my career, I've had to realise there are times when, yes, it's worthwhile doing. And there's other times where actually you've got to protect yourself. You know, yes, you could go that bit further, but actually, is that where you want to spend the effort? And saying no to people.
Yes. Saying no is difficult, isn't it?
It's really difficult, and I still haven't mastered it. But, you know, I think that's something in the care sector. You've got a lot of caring people. They want to support other people. You know, it can lead you to be saying yes to people, or and you know, you end up overstretching or whatever else.
One more question.
No, please.
Who makes your suits now?
Oh, gosh. So
do you still have handmade suits?
Yes.
Yeah.
But so my dad made the suits growing up.
Yeah.
That wasn't always a good thing, actually, because when we went into sixth form at school, you could wear your own suit, and so my dad brought home all the swatches of cloth and said, you can pick your suit. Well, it sounds great.
Yeah.
Being the 16-year-old I was, I looked at this little swatch, which was probably about 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres. Oh, that looks really nice. I'll have that one. So he took the swatch away, measured me up, took the swatch away, brought the suit back. I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. It was a black suit with a thick chalk pinstripe. Well, so the only problem was I was awarded a house tie for the sport, for the house, which was blue with a purple stripe. So I had a black suit, chalk pinstripe, and the blue with a purple tie. And I went into school and I had 2 years of getting, ribbed for this suit.
I think your dad should have made you another suit to match the tie rim.
He refused. He said, I gave you the choice. You could have had anything you wanted. That's your suit. So it was character building. So I've still got some of those suits. But no, where my father's passed away, unfortunately. But the people that run the workrooms, there's a tailor based in York, 2 brothers, so again family owned, and they use the same workrooms that my dad used to make the suits. So I still buy from them.
Fantastic.
Although when I was at my last fund, I sat on the board of TM Lewin, the shirts and ties retailer.
Wow.
So this is pre my healthcare days.
Yeah.
When they moved into suits, so I do have a couple of suits from them as well.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's been a really interesting conversation.
Absolute pleasure. No, thank you.